want to welcome everybody to our latest installment of Cops and Convicts. I'm your host, Sean Shepard, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. David Barclay. David, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, before we get started, I just want to remind our viewers to please hit the subscribe bell and hit the thumbs up icon so you can help the channel grow. It helps our algorithm, and I really appreciate it if you did that. David, how's it going today?
I was going pretty good, man. Pretty good. Week started off rough last week, but thanks to my job, my coworkers, they made it a little bit better for me. Celebrated my 45th birthday last week, last Friday.
Happy belated.
Thank you. But last Tuesday, I found out a good friend of mine actually was the first love that I would come across after nearly 20 years of incarceration. She passed away due to cancer. So that began my week rough last Tuesday as I was in a meeting and got that news. But my coworkers, we had events planned all week. I decided to go, and they made my week better. And then with my job, they gave me tickets for the Chargers and Titans game yesterday, and I was able to celebrate, take my father-in-law, well, not my stepfather, rather, take him to celebrate his 60th birthday. That's what I made it, make the week pretty good. And then
that's great to hear. My condolences on your loss, brother.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to share with our viewers how we met. I'm the founder of Game Changer, which is the nation's premier law enforcement community relations program. And we met, I want to say, it was October. It was October. It was an event that we did with the Kings. And I was very, very impressed with not only what you had to say during our discussion with law enforcement, but how you said it, how you presented yourself, and asked if you wanted to join me on this podcast because you're a member of ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. So tell our viewers a little bit about what ARC is.
Well, ARC is an organization founded by Scott Budnick, who was a Hollywood producer. Several years ago, he was going into the inside juvenile halls with inside writers, and he's seen how the juveniles are being just pretty much their lives taken from them, 15, 14, given life sentences, saying their life was over with. And he just didn't like that. It didn't sit well with him. So he began to go inside juvenile halls more and more, and ultimately founded ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, which works to end mass incarceration. They work to pass legislation, to help individuals inside doing life sentences, life without parole, help them get a chance at opportunity of life. Because some people, like back in the day, when they said life meant life. Once you had life in prison, you were going to do life. You weren't going to get out. But even me, I didn't have life. I had 31 years. And thanks to ARC, they passed Senate Bill 261, which is a youth offender law. It was saying that if you're 25 or younger, you commit a crime, sometime your mental capacity, right, your diminished culpability, you haven't developed yet. So they give an individual action at an earlier release date based upon their performance inside prison. So ARC is just about community, about family, and about bringing individuals home. Like I said, the main goal is to end mass incarceration, because, it's easy to lock somebody up, but, it was not a lot of education going on in prisons back in the day. It wasn't a rehabilitation. It was more about lock them up and throw away the key. So ARC does a lot inside the prisons as well. We have a heart team that goes in that teach classes to individuals that are lifers and long-term offenders, instructing them and helping them get their lives together and preparing them for the board, and also does things to help with the families as well. I love working for ARC.
So you just mentioned that you had a 31-year sentence. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit about you, David. Where are you from?
Well, I'm born in South Central Los Angeles, 1977, man, to a teenage mother. Earlier on, like in 81, a house I was living in with my grandma, my mom, my aunt got burned down. Long story, I was told it was deliberate. Never really got the full thing and scope of that, but, I moved right around the corner with my great grandma, and she took very, very good care of me. Grandma was very adamant about public school education, biblical education, grew up in the church. And for years, I really didn't even have no memory of my mom. She wasn't around, wasn't in my life. It was just me and my great grandma, and I stayed there with her and, my great aunt and my great uncle. Around 10 or 11, I experienced some tough stuff, at molestation, visiting my grandma. She was an in-home care nurse, and the man she cared for, his son, he molested, and at that point, some things began to change within myself. I didn't know what was going on, whether I was the cause of this or, I didn't know. So
How old were you?
I was like 10. I was about 10 or 11, about 10 or 11, after that, I just stopped going over there. My grandma never knew why I stopped going over there to see her at that house, but that was the reason, and I thought that, like I said, I thought it was my fault. What did I do wrong? Am I inviting this into my life? And I was a young kid going to church with my grandma. So I started going to a different church with my other friend and got baptized. Like by the time I was 11, 12 years old, I was baptized twice. And at the second church, I had a friend. He tried to do the same thing to me. He tried to do the same thing. I left from his house. He asked me some questions. He said, David, let me ask you something. Don't get mad. He was actually a couple years older than me. I looked up to him. He was a young minister. He actually offered me oral sex. I was like 11, about like 11-ish, close to 12. And I just ran up out of there, man. Ran up out of there, a little bit distraught. Seen a friend of mine named Ricky, and Ricky had a paper bag with a bottle of Old English in it, and a paper bag with a can of spray paint. Ricky seen how distraught I was. I knew what was going on. We went across the street to our elementary school where we were going, and I told him what happened. But he knew the guy. He knew the guy too, because he went to school with us, a couple years older than us. And I told him what happened. That would be the first day that I drank alcohol and sniffed paint. And for a few months, I was a little bit out of control, hanging with Ricky. He was my age at the time, 11 to 12, but he already had dropped out of school and everything. So at that time, I started hanging with Ricky and his friends and started doing some wild stuff. I was trying to forget things that happened to me, because I kind of felt like it was my fault. Like, here it is. The one guy, I thought he was like a big brother to me, molested me. Then somebody else I looked up to, he tried to do the same thing. So I began to think that something was wrong with me. So at the time, like I started hanging with Ricky and his friends in that gang and just did some wild stuff for a few months. And this is when I would have an interesting experience with law enforcement, because when I was arrested for a stolen car, about like 12-ish, close to 13 maybe, I remember Officer Giles, he arrested me. It was like a slow speed race. They have high speed race, but mine was a slow speed. I couldn't barely see over the steering wheel, driving this car down the street. Pulled me right over. They take me down to the station. The normal questioning, what's your mom name? What's your dad name? I gave both names, although like mom didn't really have a lot of recollection of her. Dad knew his name, but he never met him before, and I gave him his name. And officers actually knew my dad. They actually knew my dad. They
Say
said
that again. The officer was your father.
the officer actually knew my dad.
Okay.
They knew my dad. They knew him from being a criminal, right? For being a criminal and a gang member. They said, oh, Charles Moore, huh? They said, oh, he's right off of 27th and Central. And that kind of started really affecting me. I'm like, 27th and Central? Because I stayed on 42nd and Central. But here it is, I never met this man. But that night, Officer Giles, they didn't take me to juvenile hall. They cited me out. He took me home. And he said, man, I'm going to be your uncle. I never forget that, because he used to check on me from time to time to make sure I was all right, and I was still trying to hang out here and there, but I didn't last that long with that gang, because that wasn't my lifestyle. That really what I was into. I was mainly into roller skating on my skateboard, going to the skating ring pretty much every night that I could. That's how I lived my life. So I attempted to get my life together, was trying to do some things right, at the time, but even then, I remember being in my grandma's house, my great grandma's house, and I seen a picture of 4 women on the picture. And I asked my grandma, who are these women? Because one of them looked very, very familiar. One of them looked very familiar as a prostitute that I've been seeing in the street. And I said, who is this lady? My great grandma finally answered me. And those 4 women, they were women that were in prison. And one of them was my mom. And the one that I identified as being in the street, this prostitute, was my mom. And I had seen her and didn't really recognize her because I hadn't seen her since I was a child, but I kind of like, man, I know her from somewhere. It's just something sitting in me, know that I know this woman, and after that, I just really felt like, wow, my mom, here she is out in the streets, prostitute, drug addict, dad down the street, 27th and Central. Although I had my grandma, great grandma, and I know they love me and I had other people in my life, I kind of felt unloved. I couldn't appreciate what I had because I wanted what I wanted. I wanted my own mom, I wanted my dad, because I had friends of mine that did have a mom and dad, and even that started to bring up jealousy within myself. I had friends that, they had a family, they full family, and here it is, I didn't have that. I was able to identify now, like, okay, my great grandma, this is, because I called her mommy, I called her mama, so I thought, this is my mama, but then I started recognizing a bit more and more, like, man, I want my mom in my life. At the time, I still was trying to do good, trying to be, do right with my great grandma because they loved me, they took care of me. I wasn't getting into too much trouble here and there. I did a little petty theft here and there, no violence, nothing like that. But 1992, things changed. Things changed in me, 1992.
Before we get to 92.
Yes.
You looked at your grandmother or your great grandmother as your mom. Which one?
Both of them. Because I called my great grandma, I called her mama, and my grandma called her mommy. So they were like my moms.
But you thought that they were that one of them was your mother, or you knew that your mom wasn't around?
At first, I was thinking that my great grandma was my mom.
Really?
That's how that was. And I think that because I wanted her to be, I don't know what was going on inside me. I was so young. This is just how I identified, because this is my caregiver. This is the one that put me in school. This is the one that I was with every day. Had my own room in her house, and I really had no recollection of prior to that. It was just more as things started like coming to the surface around 11, 12 years old when I seen this picture. And then things started just really resonating with me. I'm like, wow, okay, what's really going on? And I think maybe I had a defense mechanism. I wanted to block things out, but I didn't remember nothing prior to 81 when I was living with my grandma and living with my mom and my auntie.
So you never met your father?
Never met my father.
And you really had little to no interaction with your mom?
Not until after, like, I was about 20 years old.
Okay, so at this time when you're 10 years old and you had been sexually abused, which, by the way, you and I have that in common.
Okay.
Male cousin, god sister, and I was younger than 10 years old. So that happened to you. And based on what you said, a minister tried to do the same thing to you. You started hanging out with your boy who gave you your first taste of alcohol. You started sniffing paint. You said you started doing some things. What things were you doing with your boy? I think you said his name was Ricky.
Yeah.
What were you doing as you said you was kind of wilding out a little bit? Talk to me about that period of time.
Okay, I'll tell you that my first crime that I committed was a robbery. And, through going to self-help and everything, I was able to identify, how this robbery played out and how significant it was in my life. Because, here it is, I'm like 12-ish, 13-ish, close to that age, and we were walking down the street late night. It's like past midnight, man. I shouldn't be out this kind of night. And, here it is. We see a Ford Escort. I never forget it. Ford Escort parked and went up to the car to carjack these people, and at the time I didn't even know how to drive a car. And it was two men in the car. These were two men that were kissing one another.
Okay.
So here it is. I'm this young kid, I pulled one guy out of the car and I'm hitting a pistol whipping him with this gun, young kid, and it, to me, in my mind, it's like these individuals was the perpetrators that harmed me and molested me. The one that did it and the one that tried to do it. In my mind, that's what I identified at the time. I'm like, okay, they're gay. These guys were gay. They did it to me. That's what I felt about that. But I wasn't able to identify that until later on. But that was the first crime that I committed, and my other friend pulled the guy out the car, and beat him up or whatever, took his money. So then I just drove the car. Like I said, I didn't know how to drive. It was stick shift. I remember that. Didn't know how to drive it. I just wrecked the car. Went up on a curve, wrecked the car, went on about our business. And after that, just a number of things, because I just became associated with that gang at the time. So everything a gang member did, shooting, robbing, trying to harm people. This is the gang lifestyle, because the gang lifestyle says that, you have enemies. You are to go and put in work on these enemies, meaning if you got to go do a drive-by shooting, on a bicycle or whatever case may be. And those are the kind of things that I did, and I was a kid, man. I look back and I'm like, wow. Sometimes I can't even believe that I experienced that.
Who'd you get the gun from?
The gang. It was the gang. The gang, we had like guns that were just belonging to the gang.
What gang was it?
This gang was actually was a Mexican gang. I was involved with a Mexican gang at the time.
Really?
Yes.
Is the gang a well-known gang?
At the time, it was, but not like that. You won't hear about them no more.
So that was your first crime. Your first crime was a carjacking.
Yes.
What was your second crime?
Well,
hang on. You didn't get caught for that, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so what was your second crime?
My second crime would have been, trying to think. I remember that. Then as a part of the gang, oh yeah, we had to go shoot at a rival gang. We had to go shoot at a rival gang. They came through and they did some shooting. So, a few of us had to go and retaliate. So that would have been the second thing that took place.
Let me ask you something, David. After you pistol whipped this dude and your boy beat the other guy up and robbed him, and you guys got in the car and drove away before you crashed it, after all of that, how did you feel about yourself?
I don't know. I guess I felt like I was a gangster. I felt like I was in control of my life, because I know after that stuff happened to me, I said, I'm not going to be a victim again. I know that's what I did. Identify. I said, I'm not going to be nobody's victim ever again. So I felt a sense of relief. Like I did that, because like I said, here it is. These guys, when I opened up the car, they two dudes, they kissing, in my mind, that could have been those guys that did that to me. So
here's what's interesting to me. You're a black man in a Mexican gang.
Yeah.
And they're telling you that part of like the gang Bible, so to speak, is that y'all have enemies.
Yeah.
What did your enemies look like? Were they all black and brown people?
They were all, at the time, they were all brown people.
So you were in a Mexican gang being a black guy, and
yeah.
You were putting in work against other Mexicans.
Yes.
What was it about you, in your mind, that made this Mexican gang feel like they wanted you in their family? Well,
to be honest with you, I knew most of them. Most of them were my friends. I went to school with some of them. Then the ones that were my age, they were like family. I knew their brothers, and we all grew up in the same area, right there in the same neighborhood. So, and that's one thing about LA, neighborhoods or gangs are like 3 and 4 blocks apart from one another. So like with Ricky stayed right on my street on 42nd. He stayed right on the other end of the street. And then with his older brother that was a part of the gang already, it's like these are already my friends. So to me, it wasn't, I didn't see a lot of difference at that time back in the day. That's why later on, when it came to the differences with the politics with the Mexican gangs and black gangs, that's why I never fit into that scope of everything, because that's not how I grew up. That's not how I even was raised with my great grandma. I didn't see that. So them were just my friends. I didn't see the difference.
So when you were out in the streets with your gang members committing crimes, Your grandmother and your great grandmother had no idea what you were doing?
They had no idea. They had no idea. But my grandma, great grandma started getting like a little bit like suspicious, like, you know, me coming home late and stuff like that. And she definitely, my great grandma was a disciplinarian. She was a disciplinarian, you know. So what ended up happening is my grandma had went to another house to do in-home care where she was actually staying in this house. And it actually happened to be just 2 doors over from my great grandma, which is very interesting. So, oh man, I played it like a fiddle because my great grandma was a disciplinarian and my grandma pretty much just let me get away with anything I wanted to, you know, because I was my mom's mom, you know, and she just wanted to make sure that I was all right, you know. So I really started just spending time with my grandma more than anything. You know, I started just spending nights over there more and less with my great grandma as I began to get involved in that stuff.
So I'm listening to you talk,
Yes.
and it seems to me like you gravitated toward staying with your grandma because she enabled you to pretty much do whatever you wanted to do.
Pretty much. Take
You could
advantage.
stay out as late as you wanted to stay out.
Pretty much, yes.
So I'm fascinated by that because you said your first crime was a robbery. You were 12, 13 years old. And I don't know all that many households that would allow 11, 12, 13-year-old to be out all hours of the night. When you look back, what is it that you think about your mom and your grandmother that, well, your mom's in a different category, but what is it about that side of the family that you think would be okay with an 11, 12-year-old boy being out all hours of the night? You said your grandmother just wanted to make sure that you were okay. Those are contradictory statements to me.
Exactly.
If she cared about you being okay, she wouldn't let you being out. She wouldn't let you be out that time. Now, what do you think about that?
No, it makes sense, man. I think more so I just took advantage of it. And I think that she just kind of just didn't want to just, I don't know, she just wanted to kind of pacify me, like whatever I want to do. Because at that time also, my mom did start coming around, but it wasn't to spend time with me, right? It wasn't to spend time. It was to come in the house when I was sleeping or they were sleeping and steal stuff from, you know, and that really caused a lot of anger within myself. I think my grandma was like, although I know she was worried and stuff like that, you know, and she would talk to me, but at the same time, she just felt like, you know, she just wanted me to be able to be happy. That's it. Whatever I want to do, it wasn't going to affect her. You know, although, like you said, it don't make no sense. I'm out late at night. You know, I'm hanging out. Anything can happen to me. You know, remember I came home, I had got stabbed in my back when I was like 12, 13. Some stuff happened in the game. I came home and my grandma, she was an in-home care nurse, but she was a RN too, right? So, you know, she was the one sutured my back and laid me on the couch and took care of me. You know, so definitely, I think that I took advantage of my grandma. You know, she did drink at the time and stuff like that. She did drink. You know, I think, and I look back at that. That's why I don't like so much harping on the bad part no more. I like to look at the positive because I have people that love me and I didn't appreciate it. That's why the man you see before you today is a representation of my great grandma, my grandma. You know, the love that they put in me. You know, and all their good quality characteristics. So I think she's, like I said, she just wanted me to be happy, and whatever that meant was okay with her. If it meant that I was gonna stay out late, you know, great grandma, no, you ain't staying out late. You're gonna be in by this time. Okay, the door gonna be locked. You know, you're doing something wrong. Okay, I'm gonna beat you behind. My grandma, she never did none of that. She was, and I knew looking back, I said, man, I take advantage. You know,
I hear you, man. There was a guy that I was friends with in grade school. He was a white boy, and I loved him. We got along, but there was something inside him, David, that was severely, severely broken. And I remember we were young and I went and stayed the night at his house. And he had two brothers and a sister, older brother, him, younger sister. And I just remember that there were no rules in the house. Like here I am spending the night. We had no curfew. His parents weren't watching or cared what we were doing at all. And that was like the exact opposite of the house that I grew up in. I just remember not feeling comfortable. Like somebody should be telling us, like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we're just doing whatever we wanted, going out, leaving the house. And I just felt like there was this instability that made me feel uncomfortable that I wasn't used to.
Yeah.
It sounds like you got used to that freedom very easily, because you had other homeboys that were doing the same thing. And I'm sure at the time it felt like you all were having a good time. Did you ever feel a sense of fear during that time? I mean, being so young and being out in the streets in the gang, was there any sense of fear?
Yeah, I feared, but that's the whole defense mechanism. You act like you're not scared. You know, I was everything I did, I was scared. Everything I did. Because see, with that gang, that only lasted for some months. Then I left that alone. And then went into a different kind of lifestyle. Still was like I was a tagger. I hung with these guys and we just stole from malls and things like that when I started going to the skating ring. So, but anytime I was committing crimes and doing stuff, yeah, I was scared. You know, of course I was scared, but I just did it. You know, I did it. Like I said, I wasn't gonna be a victim no more. You know, now I'm a part of this. So now I got to put that front up like I am hard. I am tough. But when on the inside, really, little David just needs a hug. You know, little David just needs to be comforted. You know, little David was hurting. And this is how I chose to let my pain come out. You know, they say hurt people, you know, but in retrospect, hurt people choose to hurt people. I chose to do that. You know, it was good things around me that I just chose not to focus on. You know, and for me, that's what makes me me today, because I look back at that, you know, and the time I did, grandma passing away and great grandma passing away, you know, and you know, they seen some change inside me there, but not being able to see this full transformation, you know, because ultimately, you know, like even one of my aunts asked me, like, what did you learn all this? Like, you know, I'm doing pretty good today. I got 2 jobs, doing pretty well. I got my own place. Everything is going great. I said, what I learned today, I learned this from my grandma, great grandma. These were some hardworking women. They loved people. They were compassionate. They were kind. You know, they loved everybody. You know, they didn't have a mean bone in their body, you know, and that's me today, you know, because now today I can be my grandma's grandson or my great grandma's great grandson. That's my identification today. Whereas back then, identified as this wannabe gang member, this wannabe criminal, this wannabe thug, this wannabe tagger, because little David didn't want to identify that little David was hurt. I needed to get through some stuff. And, you know,
Did you question your own sexuality when these dudes when that one guy molested you and the pastor tried to?
Yes, I questioned, you know, like, who was I? I said, am I bringing this in my life? What am I? You know, what am I? And that takes me into a whole other part, because, you know, I became like a womanizer. You know, I became this guy that wanted just to be with any woman, because I felt like that made me a man. You know, I felt like for sure that made me not be homosexual or gay. And what happened to me would just happen. You know, so definitely for a while, I questioned that. You know, I'm like, man, why does this stuff happen to me? Is this my fault? Am I doing something? How am I carrying myself? Do I have ways or feminine ways, or what's going on with me? You know, so I definitely did question that. You know, I definitely questioned that. And that kind of caused me, was a contributing factor to how most of my relationships played out, where they were not successful.
So you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister. She lives in Georgia. Her sister, yes, she's 43.
So when you were doing all this at this young age, where was your sister?
Well, the difference between me and my sister is she had a father and I didn't. So
Same mother, different father.
Same mother, different father. So she spent a lot of time with her father and his grandmother. You know, that's how that went. You know, she was some time at my great grandma's house as well, but I mainly stayed right there with my great grandma, or my sister, where she had her father in her life, so she had that going on, and even that was kind of an issue for me.
How so?
Just being jealous, just being jealous, But even remember I told you last night when I went to the game, it was her father I took to the Chargers game last night.
Oh, wow.
Celebrate his 60th birthday. Just full circle moment, full circle. Being able to have my life transform and appreciate him now for the man he is, and for the father he's been to my sister. And even being there for me when I didn't want him to be there for me, even when I was angry and causing a fuss. Still loving on me. And it's a beautiful thing how things turn out today.
Even though he's of no blood relation to you.
No blood relation to me.
Well, there's something about you, David, because something made that man want to be in your life.
Yes.
Something made him want to be in your life and be there for you. So you're doing some crimes when you're 12 and 13 years old. You said some petty theft, you were tagging, you were shooting at people. You mentioned 1992. So you were doing all these things. What leads us to 1992? Talk to me about what you were doing leading up to, I'm assuming it's an incident in 1992 that changed your life.
Yes, it changed my life, and it's a difficult one to talk about, At the time I was involved with tagging and stuff like that. I remember 92, the riots happened. The riots happened. That was just pivotal for a lot of us, in Los Angeles. But I remember I was 14 years old. No, 14 years old.
In 1992.
Exactly. I was 14 years old. 14
Okay.
years old. I had a girlfriend, Vernetta Brown, right? Vernetta Brown. And I recall my friend, Corian Scott Gaines, whom is no longer amongst the land of the living. He was chopped down, gun violence in 1994, sadly. But he showed me a video. He said, David, come over here. So he showed me a video. And on the video was my girlfriend, Vernetta Brown, with some of the older guys in the neighborhood, having sex. And so I'm like, okay. So definitely, I just stopped seeing her, right? Stopped calling her. She was my girlfriend, stopped calling her. I didn't want to see her or nothing. But I remember in, was it maybe into April, early May of 1992, I'm on my skates, as a matter of fact. I'm on skates, me and my friend Deshaun, we're on our skates, and see Vernetta. She said, hey, David. She's calling me. Well, I just kept going. I kept going. My friend Deshaun stays. He stays. The next day I'm at school, and my friend, she says, hey, police up here looking for you. I said, looking for me? For what? She said, I don't know, but they look serious or whatever. So I stayed right across the street from the school. So I went to my grandma's house. I said, I don't know what's going on. Police across the street looking for me. I don't know what's happening around here, right? So I'm thinking maybe some of the gangsters might have caught up to me. I don't know. So here it is. I had a different girlfriend at the time. I went to the Jungles, and I stayed with her and her mom for like maybe a week or so.
So just for our viewers, the Jungles is a specific neighborhood in South Central Los Angeles.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I forget we got viewers. I'm thinking we just one-on-one. But yes, there's a specific Los Angeles area, the Jungles, the west side of LA, off Crenshaw. And so I'll go stay with her for about a week and half. Remember, I'm only 14 years old. Here it is, I'm with this other girlfriend and with her mom. And my grandma was calling me. She said, the police keep coming here. They want to talk to you. And she said, let's just go see what they want, So my grandma encouraged me to come. So me and my grandma went down to the police station, and the police said that I was wanted for assault, rape in concert, right? And I didn't know what that meant, right? I didn't know what that meant. And so as they get to telling me about this stuff, that something supposed to happen with me and Vernetta Brown, right? And at 14, I still don't understand what happened, right? And this is something, I'm 45 now, and I still can't tell you what happened. Here it is, I'm a 14-year-old juvenile. They take me into custody. You know, now on my court appearance, my friend Deshaun Ford is in court as well. That day, he gets released from custody, and I'm still in. Now, at 14, I don't know much about the system, don't know nothing about anything. And all I'm being told is rape in concert. I'm really getting no real big explanation about what was supposed to take place here. You know, I'm like, hey, you know, this is what happened. I've seen his ex-girlfriend, didn't say nothing to her. I kept going. That's it, right? This is my explanation, and this is the truth that I'm telling them. So they said, well, you're facing juvenile life. I'm like, juvenile life? What's going on here? I haven't done anything. You know, here it is, this representation, I guess, a public defender at the time. Like, so I'm 14, so I really didn't know nothing about that stuff that was going on at the time. Ultimately, the public defender tells me, hey, this is what you need to do. You can avoid going to YA and doing juvenile life if you just plead no contest, and you'll go to a juvenile's boy home. So that's what I did. I pleaded no contest, then had no idea what I was setting myself up for. Pleaded no contest and ended up in Optimus Boys Home.
Optimus Boys Home.
Yes. And that was in Highland Park. You know, I was staying in juvenile hall from May to July of 1992. Then I would go to Optimus Boys Home for 15 months. And while there, as I began to kind of understand what had just happened to me, it brought up a lot of anger in me. I realized that I just pleaded to something that I didn't do, somebody understand, and now they got me in a situation. So while in Optimus Boys Home, I was very violent for them first few months. I was very violent, you know, fighting with my fellow peers, assaulting my fellow peers. I was angry. You know, I was mad at what had happened to me. But, you know, months into being Optimus Boys Home, I did manage to turn it around and began to do a good program in there. Ultimately getting out of there after about 15 months, and got out of there. And upon getting out of there, I would end up getting a job at Department of Water and Power through my other school. So I did manage to turn some things around, but that was something that would follow me even into my next incarceration, as I didn't understand what had happened to me.
So let me recap.
Yes.
So for our viewers, Penal Code 264.1 defines the California crime of gang rape or rape in concert. This is where two or more people act in concert, work together to engage in non-consensual sexual intercourse with the victim. So you're being accused of, and you plead no contest to, this act with your ex-girlfriend. Now, let me ask you something. Do you remember having sex with your ex-girlfriend with someone else?
Nope. She and I were not even sexually active together.
All right. So you never had sex with her?
No, we were 14, right? She was 13. We didn't even, it wasn't that kind of party. She just was my girlfriend. We just went to school together.
But yet you saw a video of her having sex with other people.
Exactly.
And somehow you obviously weren't on that video.
I wasn't.
So what evidence did they have that you did this, David?
Don't even know. They didn't present nothing to me. And as I look back, I'm like, man, I was railroaded. You know, I was 14 years old. You know, if this happened to me now, I would have fought the case and most likely would have won the case.
DNA.
You know,
DNA evidence.
Yeah. I wish I had a way to go back on that kind of stuff, right? Because that's something that would affect me even later down the line.
So you know what your what happened to you reminds me of. It reminds me of what happened to the Central Park Five,
Yeah,
right? But they did far more time than you did. But to your point, the experience that you had of being incarcerated for something you didn't do, that's the same scar. It's a similar scar
yes.
that I can't relate to. So you get out, you get a job with the Department of Water and Power. How old are you at this point?
At that point, I was 16. I was 16 years old. And I went to this continuation school downtown, Metropolitan High School. And I remember being in a computer class and teacher taught us some database and spreadsheets. And, he said, you did pretty well. So they had an opportunity. They were having some jobs opening up for us. I think it was summertime type of situation. And I went for an interview. And I got a job, Department of Water and Power. And I just was like a clerical assistant. I was inputting all the hard files, putting them on a computer. That's what I did back in 1993. 1993, I did that. As a matter of fact, I was 15.
How'd you get a job so young?
Because they had something that was going on at our school. It was at school. They said, we got jobs available right now in DWP or what, I'm not sure if it was a summer thing or what was going on, but it could have been something like that. But summer, as a matter of fact, it was already September. So no, it wasn't a summer thing. So, like I said, initially, to be honest with you, I didn't even want a job initially because I was still young. I was like to run the streets and stuff like that. So I really wasn't worried about that. But I do remember going home that day, and by now I was kind of like back in with my great grandma's house. So I was, remember I get home and my great grandma had me she had some shoes for me, some new shoes. I'm like, wow. I remember thinking, I said, now what can I do to help her out? So I went back to school the next day and I asked my teacher, was the job still available? And he said, yeah, sure. So I went for the interview. I got the job EWP. And I would go to school, go to work. And I was doing all right for a few months.
And then what happened?
One of my friends, the same one that showed me the video, Corey and Scott Gaines, he got killed. He got killed January 1994. I just seen him about a few days prior to, and he was telling me how proud he was of me. He was like a year or so older, proud he was of me, and just to, stay focused, go to school and stuff like that. And then I would see him a few days later. Then he's in the car with his older gang member. And his whole wardrobe had changed. It went from back in the day, we was wearing troop and gas and all that, but now he's wearing some khakis and a Pendleton and some Chuck Taylors, some All-Stars, as we call them, and some Converse. And within about a few weeks, he got killed. He was selling drugs right down the street from where he stayed at, and Mexican gang came and they killed him. Said he was selling drugs in front of their house. And I just remember being angry. And just mad at the world. I've been mad at the world. And, I recall at that time, I was no longer associated with the other gang no more. I was kind of just a tagger and stuff like that. And one of my friends that was a tagger with me, he was also a gang member from this gang and right where I grew up at. And I would occasionally like experience situations where they wanted to fight me and stuff like that, the guys over there. And I'd be going to the store. I remember one day, a couple of the guys that wanted to try to jump on me, and my friend that was a part of the gang said, hey, just give him a fair fight. So that would be like the actual first fight that I really won. I actually really won this fight. So, I decided, hey, might as well join them. So I joined that gang that day. And that day, I ended up committing a crime on the corner, a robbery, with a gun that was given to me. And when I pulled the gun on a guy, the gun went off. The gun went off. And it's how the events unfold. I just look back and see how tremendously blessed I was, because as this gun go off, police hit the corner. I ran through the alley. You know, these alleys led to my great grandma's house. You know, and I ended up running to my great grandma's front yard, to the back. Police were like right on me, and I went to the same street where I did this crime. Right, it's just crazy. I look at all this stuff, I'm like, wow. And you know, so for that day, I didn't get caught or nothing like that.
You didn't get caught?
Nope, I didn't get caught or nothing. And I'm thinking I'm on a run, so I don't go home at all. Definitely not. I stopped working, you know, and I just began, this is my game. And I was staying with a few friends at the time, right on the same block, you know, and sadly to say, those same friends, I stayed with them, you know, friends I went to school with, you know, they all would end up getting killed 3 years later, right? It's just how events unfold is crazy, but here it is. I thought I was on the run for a couple months because of what I did on that corner. But I would end up getting pulled out of the same apartment that I was standing with those young ladies, my friends. Police came up there because one of my friends ran up there from them with a gun. You know, they came up there, and I had guns up there. I remember I had a 22 rifle in the couch where I was sleeping on. They came in there, they looked around and everything. They didn't find nothing but the gun that the guy, my homeboy, ran up there with. It's the only gun they found. They got him for that, took me to the police station, ran my name.
Took you to the police station for what?
Because they just, I'm in this house, I'm a young gang member, right? At the time, I'm 16 years old, you know, so they take me down to run me. You know, they run me, everything was good, I was clean. And I just knew I was going to jail, because I just thought that guy had, when the gun went off, that he got shot. And then even to be able to say they hit the corner right there and identify me, I just look back and see how fortunate I was. And I'm a man of faith, so I believe that God had always been watching over me. That's just my belief, because ain't no way I go to the station and here all of a sudden I'm on the bus coming back home from Newton Station back then, when it was down there on 14th, down that way. You know, and that's just how that had played out right there. You know, and but I would, a couple months later, end up robbing somebody in the same corner. Right? This is just the stupidity of being a young gang member, robbing somebody in the same street corner, then coming back 90 minutes later to the same liquor store. And then as I was coming out, here come the police, and I was arrested for a robbery. And
So the guy that you robbed identified you.
He identified me, and this was an old black man. And this is just how the events played out. I guess I just look at my life. I said, man, I was blessed, because I was caught with this man's wallet in my pocket. Had his wallet, his ID, and everything. And here it is. You know, I spin this story of how I found this wallet. I didn't rob this man. I was walking through the alley and I seen somebody running, and I hid behind something. And, you know, they dropped this item. It was this man's wallet. Why keep the man's wallet? Well, you know, he had his ID, and I know some stuff that you can do with people's IDs. I just had this elaborate story. So, but still in all, I'm still arrested for a robbery. But now I'm 16 years old, and my co-defendant that was arrested with me was 15, and he didn't actually do the crime with me. Somebody else did it. They just happened to have the same clothes on, same colored Dickie pants and a white tank top. That's it. Two young black men, same clothing, but he didn't commit the crime, and he would go to do 5 years in YA. But here it is with me. I get Charles adult, and the man that I robbed came to court and said that he did not see the person in court in the court that robbed him. He would not identify me. He did not identify me. Don't know why, man. I just look at the grace of God that was upon, as I was trying to destroy my own life, God was trying to help me, look out for me. And I still went to prison, but I went, they gave me receiving on a property because I had the man's ID, right? His wallet. You know, I went to YA first for a couple.
Wait, hold up.
Yes, go ahead.
They sent you to prison because you had his property?
Yes, this is what happened was, okay, I took a deal for 16 months. 16 months receiving stolen property. That's just how it went, man. I can look back and see how wrong it was, but I just try to look in the blessings and everything. You know, yes, a lot of it was wrong because here it is, I'm 16 years old. I'm Charles Adult. I go to YA for 90 days observation. They sent me, I was in Norwalk and Southern Reception Center and Clinic. Then they sent me up north to NRCC, Northern Reception Center and Clinic, because it was overcrowded. They had 3 of us sleeping in one cell, you know, two on bunks. Then they had a foam mattress just sitting on the floor in there. So it was so crowded, they sent me up north. And I'm from down south up north. I was fighting every day. And they said, okay, you're unfit for YA. So I go back down to court and they say, you are remanded to the custody of state prison, right? You know, so I'm 16 years old. You know, I turned 17 and they came to pick me up from juvenile hall to take me to Delano. Now on 16 months back then, third time you only did 10 months, 20 days. I already had like 10 months or something in from juvenile hall to YA. And all they needed to do for me is get me a prison number. That's all they really wanted. And that's what they do a lot of time. They want, you know, once you got a prison number, you're a minority. And, you know, if you got your life together, you're going to be going back and forth. It's going to be a revolving door for you. So I went to Delano and I get off the van, no, the truck or whatever. And then I seen it was I think it was a captain that was there. It was like, you know, we need to see you immediately and get you processed. You will be out of here shortly. So to be honest with you, I was there for 2 weeks, but that was like the scariest 2 weeks of my life. You know, I'm 16 years old. You know, a couple of things that I was coming across, and it was like one guy. I remember one guy, homosexual guy, right? And this kind of brought up some of the past, you know. But this guy always like stared and looked at me and this, that, and the other. And you know, I told my cellmate about this, and you know, my cellmate had told me, hey man, this is what you need to do. You just gotta be upfront, let this person know who you are, and you know, go from there. So scared as I was, you know, I told this dude, this big old dude, like 6'4", man, 6'4". I told her, I said, hey man, you know, I was at the time, I gave my gang name, you know, I'm such and such, C-Rob, Photos Gangster Crib. At the time I joined that gang, I'm a gangster from the streets. I'm not with that stuff. So whatever your mind is on, you can miss me with all that. And, you know, all he said was that, you know, I just think you're so cute and this, that, and the other. I want to do this and that for you. You know, I said, look, just let's get it understood. This is who I am. This is what I represent. And after that, you know, I really didn't have a problem. You know, I didn't have no problems. And like I said, it still was a scary 2 weeks for me. Scary 2 weeks for me, you know, and then even experiencing uncomfortability inside my cell, because here it is, kind of find out my cellmate was like that, right? But he never presented it to me.
Oh, really?
Huh?
Your cellmate was gay?
Yeah, check it out though. He was married. And funny story, right? Funny story. This is this funny story. I thought the prison was co-ed. I don't know what I was thinking, because the neighbor was transgender. And at the time, I really didn't know a whole lot about it. You know, you know a little bit, but I'm in prison. I'm 17. I'm oblivious to some of these things. And, you know, I find out more and more, and here it is, my cellie was writing letters to the neighbor. I said, oh, okay, you know, so that was an uncomfortable situation. Like I said, that was an uncomfortable 2 weeks, scary 2 weeks, but I got out of there. I paroled from prison from Delano, North Kern, when I was 17 years old in July of 19, No, June of 1994. No, hold on, no, June 1995. June 1995, I paroled from there. And that was the beginning of pretty much just me getting back into gang life, getting back into that second gang that I had joined.
Let me ask you something, David.
Yes.
You're going to school, you have a job at the Department of Water and Power. What made you jump back into a gang when things were going well for you?
And that's interesting because, like I said, at the time, I was doing pretty good. So, life was going all right. Like I said, in January of 1994, my friend Corey, he was killed. That caused a lot of pain, and I already was kind of dealing with some stuff with the gang in my neighborhood. I like to look at gangs as like a bad army, because you said, the army say looking for a few good men. I like to think of gangs as looking for young men, young boys to take and just destroy their lives and take them to just do their bidding. And that's what it was, because a lot of it, like even me and my friend that went to jail with me, and I was with in 1992, he and I would experience days where we were fighting these guys in the neighborhood, right? We were getting beat up. As a matter of fact, that'd be changing from fighting. We actually were getting beat up, and he didn't succumb to the pressure, but I did, especially that one day where I said, okay, here it is, I won that fight because my friend was already part of the gang, and he and I were like best buddies. He said, give him a fair fight. And I won, and didn't know that was my initiation, but it happened to be my initiation. So now I'm just a part of this game, and like I said, I did that little first robbery, and now this is my life. I became a part of this. This became a part of who I was, and ultimately got indoctrinated with the street culture. The first gang, that was one thing. Now this went to a whole nother level. It was a whole nother level, because this would last. And now I'm up under this name, and the name I was up under was, like my friend's name, and he's up under his brother's name, and his brother's up under somebody else's name. So I'm like the fourth person up under his name, and these guys are like known gang members, right? These guys are criminal. They're bank robbers. They're feared by local gangs. So now I have to do all I can to preserve that name, because two of the older ones, they were in prison, federal prison at the time. So I did all I can do to make sure that I represented that name.
And this is, now you're a Crip. You're not with the Mexican gang anymore.
I was a Crip. Yep.
Okay. So you get out on parole. Now you're in deep with the Crips.
Yes.
And committing crimes as a gang member with the Crips.
Yes.
Something tells me that you're about to share with me, or soon, what got you this 31-year sentence.
Yes, and that would actually happen after I left the gang. It's a lot of stuff happened, man, and a lot of stuff happened. Yeah, I did all the stuff in the gang. I was in and out of prison, gun. My main thing was gun charges. That was my main thing. I would always get caught with a gun or something.
Right.
So up until like the year 2000, I was doing violations and going in and out for gun charges. Right. That was just my life, because after I joined the gang, like 2 months later, my friend, the one that was my best friend, he got killed too. And I would like to say that because here it is. He the only reason why I was comfortable hanging over there. These were not my friends or my homeboys. They were homeboys of somebody you meet, over a hot 40 ounce back in the day or whatever, a joint they might have had COVID on it or something. But, he got killed 10 minutes after he left me. Remember, I thought I was on a run for that robbery. When I thought I was on a run for that robbery, standing at my friend's house, he came over there and said, hey, I'm gonna go make some money for us, and I'm gonna take you somewhere else. Take you on the west side, we go to my mom's house. But he left 10 minutes later. His brother girlfriend came and let me know, hey, DeJuan just got shot. He got shot one time in the chest. I go over there with his guns and all this, just thinking I'm gonna be able to do something. But anyway, by the time I get there, he's already dead. So now really I was uncomfortable in this game. I was uncomfortable. Everything I did was scared. I like to tell you I was the best pretend gangster you ever want to meet, right? Because I pretended like crazy. I took drama class back in Cal State when I was a kid, and I felt like, my drama classes paid off, because I was the best pretend gangster you ever want to meet. But ultimately, like I said, about 2000, I started getting tired of the gang life. I started getting tired. I was involved with bank robberies and stuff like that. And I remember coming home one day from doing one of those things, coming back to the neighborhood. Then it was not a good day. I said, God don't want me to be a successful criminal, right? I'm not gonna be the rich criminal, right? And we was projected to go here and maybe get so much amount of money from this bank, and the money blew up. I know you heard about the die packs and the money and all that stuff with banks. Money blew up. We throw the money in the igloos. We minimum amount of money, 4,000 a piece. That's not a successful bank robbery, right? That's just how it was. So in my mind, I'm thinking this is a sign. So I tell one of the older guys from the neighborhood, hey man, I'm gonna get my life together. I'm ready to go back to school. I don't think I should be out here. This is somebody that knew my grandma, older guy, 50-some years old. But what he tells me is, man, you know what, cuz, keep it gangsters moving. You about to get your G status. Like, by saying that here, that I'm doing so much out here, I'm putting in work or whatever case you want to be, I'm becoming a real gangster, a young gangster, whatever. So that's just a G code, right? My status is developing. So stick to it, right? There was no encouragement whatsoever. And, so I still hung around. And a few weeks later, I would get arrested for a robbery that I commit.
That you did commit or that you didn't?
I did commit, and the way it all played out, I don't get, no, I got arrested, but they just needed to question me. After the questioning, they had the video of the people that did the robbery, and it was sad because it was my friend that got killed. And the last one that got killed, it was his nephew, and another guy, but they had a video and all that. So here it is, I'm out of it, I'm not involved and nothing like that. So, but at that time, I decided to make a decision, a hard decision. And I actually left the gang. I stopped hanging around the gang. And November, December of 2000, I said, no longer am I going to be involved with this stuff. So I just stopped hanging around. I stopped hanging around. I was dating an older woman, and she started helping me get jobs. My first jobs as an adult, working at a warehouse, and I was trying to do the right thing, right? I was doing the right thing. Still had that one problem. I like guns. Now, by this time, I like guns. I thought that that's how I protect myself. So I would end up getting caught with one more gun. But I got off parole and everything. Got off parole, and all was well. But it comes back to me and bad relationships. That's how I ended up in prison with 31-year sentence, behind a bad relationship that I was involved in. It was in 2002 that I would meet a young woman, Sylvia. I was 24, she was 17. She had a young child. I remember meeting her. She had involved in a bad relationship herself at the time. And we sparked up a conversation, friendship. She used to braid my hair, had long hair at the time. And here it is, I'm thinking I'm gonna be something for her when I was nothing for myself. I'm thinking I'm gonna take her away from something and care for her when I couldn't care for myself. So initially, the relationship was good. Everything was well. Mom and everybody was cool with our relationship. Like I say, she was 17, I was 24. She had a young child. But I was always a guy that had multiple women. I was always a guy that was abusive. I was in domestic violence. I was not a good partner, period. I didn't know what love was, because I couldn't even love myself. So ultimately, the family intervened, said, should part ways. But we didn't. We didn't part ways. And because we didn't part ways, one night, remember, I came home, and I was actually with somebody else, but I came home and she had a message on my answer machine. I went to go see her. She said, "I'll come pick me up." She stayed right around the corner. I was living in Compton at the time. So I went and picked her up. Matter of fact, just walked, because she just stayed around the corner. I just met her around the corner. We got to my grandma's house, and we got to talking. And she said, "Oh, you know what? I want to tell you something." And I said, "What is that?" She said, "Well, I cheated on you." I was angry, slapped her up, put my hands on her, very abusive. jealous. And then after that, she says, "Oh, I apologize." I said, "For what?" She said, "Because I lied. I didn't cheat on you. I just want to test your love." I'm like, okay, and we made up. We made up. At least that's what I thought, right? At least that's what I thought. We made up, but the next morning I would, walk her halfway home. But she was bruised. So her folks knew that when she got back, that where she was at already, and I would get a call the next morning. The next morning I would get a call from her. It said, "Hey, how you doing? Everything good?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good," and to start talking to her and stuff. And before I know it, my grandma's place was surrounded by the SWAT team and everything. I was in the attic for like 9 hours. I was in the attic for a long time with a bottle of Jack Daniels and some marijuana, just not knowing how this was going to end for me. I'm like, wow, the way they came, I'm like, this is don't look good. My grandma was calling, my great grandma was calling rather. My grandma, they went and got her. She was in dialysis. They went and got her, had her at Mona Park. As the negotiator was trying to call and get me out the house. But at this time, I kind of made a decision. I was not going to come out that house. I was going to end it. I just didn't see that. I did see this ending well for me, but they shot tear gas in there eventually. And I came out. They arrested me. I went down to the station. Initially, they said domestic violence. I'm like, okay. But I wake up. I was so drunk, I didn't recognize and realize. I said, man, wow, where I was at. And I'm like, why am I here? So same thing, domestic violence. So 6 days later, finally, when I finally go to court, the public defender came and talked to me and showed me my charges. And they were extensive.
What were they?
They were extensive. They were rape. They were kidnap. They were assault with great bodily injury, assault with a weapon. They were just extensive. And I'm like, wow. And the story was that what she said was that on that night, around 1 in the morning or something, she woke up with her stomach was hurting, and she went to get some 7-Up from the gas station. And all of a sudden, she see me at the gas station. And I approach her and force her by gunpoint to my house. That was the story that she gave them. Then all of a sudden, at 1 in the morning, this is what happened. She got, she's sick. And so she go down there when it's like 7 people in her house. But anyway, that was a story that was spent. She and I still was communicating for months because she said she was pregnant. She said she was pregnant. Told my grandma she was pregnant.
Was she?
That's something. We're gonna get into all that too, man. That's go to trial. My trial life plus 240 years is what I was facing. That's what I was facing in trial. But in my trial, it all came out who I really was. I was just, because even in trial, I was an alcoholic. Every day I drank Pruno. So I'm going to trial. I'm threatening the DA, threatening the district detective, cussing the judge out. I was just wild in my own trial. So I really didn't give myself a chance. But ultimately, I was not found guilty of all charges, but I was found guilty of 3 rapes, assault, deadly weapon, statutory rape, false imprisonment, The kidnap, not guilty, 8-4 my way. And initially, the judge gave me 24 years. He gave me 24 years, 85%. But 3 weeks later, the DA brought me back to court. She said the judge sentenced me illegally because he didn't give me no enhancements. And at the time, by law, they had to give you at least 1 enhancement. And these enhancements were 10 gun allegations. But I didn't have a gun. I wasn't caught with a gun, nothing like that. But at the time, that's what they had to do. So the judge will give me extra 7 years, to tack on a 24 to 31 years or 85%. And that was my sentence. I would go to prison. For the first couple of years, I'm sitting there angry, I'm upset, feeling mad at the world, feeling unjustly incarcerated. I'm like, how does this happen to me? I was 14, that stuff happened. I'm 14, that stuff happened, and this stuff happens again. So I was just mad, man. I was mad at the world. But I remember sitting in a cell in Lancaster in 2005, January the 1st, and I was drinking Pruno, smoking marijuana. I got thinking about my life. I said, wow. I'm sitting there partying for New Year's. I said, my life ain't nothing to celebrate. And I can sit here and inquire about being unfairly incarcerated, but it's all my fault. Put myself in a situation. I made bad decisions that caused me to be here. I had a grandma, great grandma that loved me. They took care of me really good. Great uncles, great aunties, but I didn't appreciate nothing. I always cried and complained about a mother that wasn't there, the father that wasn't there. What about those that were there? So that day I prayed. I said, God, here it is. I thought you left me as a child when I was molested. And then the other guy wanted to do the same. But here it is. You never left me. Because I'm here right now. And I got this horrible thing that I'm up under. But you're still with me. I'm still alive. Most of my friends are dead. And most of them are in here and they do have life, but I don't have a life sentence. So I have hope. I prayed. I said, God, if you can use me today, if you can use me to serve you, let me do that. It don't matter that at the time, my parole date was 2005 and my parole date was 24 years down the line. It didn't matter. It was a matter about finally being my grandma's grandson and great grandma's great grandson. So that day I made a conscious decision to turn my life around, regardless of whatever. And it was difficult, especially with the stigma of allegations against me, my conviction being inside prison. It was hard, but I made it a point to go above and beyond, to be different, right? To stand out. So people know when they see Dave, they know Dave is about his business. And because of that, I was able to just carve a path off for myself and be ordained as a minister in 2012. The ARC pushed through Senate Bill 261, youth offender bill that would grant me early parole almost 10 years early because I was doing so well inside. And I went to parole board having just completed my associate's degree in business a few months prior. And I went to parole board for the first time in September 3rd, 2020, and was found suitable. The board members spoke of how proud they were of me. And here it is, my ex at the time I was in prison for, she spoke at my board hearing and she actually apologized at that board hearing.
The ex that wound up playing a role in you getting the sentence.
Yeah, she apologized, but not for everything. She didn't apologize for everything, but she apologized because remember I told you about the baby. She had told my grandma she had a baby. January the 9th, 2004, she supposed to give birth to this daughter, Sierra. She supposed to been bringing it to see my grandma. I've been writing letters, and these letters were all designed, and I still have them, I got them right here, man. I got them right here. That's a part of my board packet, and these letters were just designed to, if I ever to contact her, to build a relationship, to not be in odds with her mom. Whatever her mom said, this is what happened. Dad was a bad dude. Dad made some horrible decisions, and I don't have no excuses for that. I'm a different person today and I have a lot to offer, so that's what these letters were about. But for 17 years, I thought there was a daughter, but she said that she apologized that there never was a daughter.
There was no baby at all.
No, because as I was speaking, and as a matter of fact, the board commissioner was looking at my stuff. He's like, "Oh, who is Sierra?" Which is supposed to be my daughter. And in the board, he said, "What would you tell Sierra about healthy relationships?" Sierra being my daughter again. And I went on to explain what I would tell my daughter about healthy relationships and what to look for as I able to identify within myself the traits of, an individual that just don't need to be in a relationship, having mother issues and having anger issues and just having things of that nature, being emotionally damaged and not having that part of your life repaired. So me sharing that with the board member, then the DA speaks at our board hearings. The DA says, "See, that shows you how his mental status, and that he fabricated a daughter. He has no daughter with Sylvia. There is no daughter. There never was a daughter, and I don't know what he's thinking about." So actually, that's when she spoke up and she said, "I want to apologize for that. I lied about that." And that's kind of like when I kind of lost control of the board, but not verbally or saying anything crazy, but just emotionally, it just all came out because here it is. I've been writing these letters and, just preparing myself, ultimately to, hey, if one day, if I'm to meet this little girl, I'm coming to her totally as a different person, as somebody that can speak from experience about really what a healthy relationship is and what a man is today. So, that sums that up, man. And even like in the situation 92 came up in my board hearing because, they speak of a nexus, right? A nexus about, that can lead to other crimes. Like this happened in 92, and I had to explain, like, here it is, I'm coming before you and y'all want us to be honest. How can I be honest about something that I can't even explain to you? I don't know nothing about it. I can't even tell you what happened that day. I said my file and what I've accomplished, it speaks for itself. I plan on coming here and spinning a story for you about that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to spin a story about, oh, this is what I did. This is how it happened. This is what I learned. Nah, I didn't learn nothing from that because I didn't do anything. I was a young Black man that got caught up, and I would later learn that my ex at the time, she was drugged. Because my sister and my cousin, because of that, they beat that girl up. Right? They beat that girl up. And my cousin, when I got out this time, she knew more about that stuff than I did. She was drugged. And I still don't ever know how. The main part is I still don't know how I got caught up like that. And I still haven't come in contact with my friend Deshaun, because I honestly got some questions to ask him. I just want some closure. I don't like to look back into the past because I'm living such a good life. I've been able to got out last February, 2021, start working with CEO March 7th, Center for Employment Opportunities, working for part-time with the Caltrans crew. Then 2 months later in May, I will get a permanent position as a client aide in a restoration program of Christ Center Ministries, working with individuals in a home. They are mentally ill. They have been incarcerated lower level. They go to this program because they are mentally incapable of standing trial. And they tell them, hey, you go to this program for 2 years, you complete the program, they get them housing, and they help them with their lives. And honestly, I wasn't able to have that job because of my conviction, right? And when I did my going through my training, they stopped my training because of the background check. And they said, we want to talk to you further. Initially, I was a little bit discouraged, but then I said, hey, they just want to talk to me. Okay, that's what I do best. Life is about choosing decisions. I made some poor ones, but I can tell you that for the past 17, I've been making some great ones, and I got evidence to prove it. So I actually put together an employment testimony, and then through CEO, the Center Employment Opportunity, had legal representation up on the Project Impact. And my legal representation, Giovanni Pesci, he reviewed the letter I had put together and drafted. He edited. He said, you don't have to share so much, right? He said, just what you need to share. So I presented that, and then with evidence of rehabilitation, went down there before the board, their board at Christ Center Ministries, spoke before about 4 women about my truth, about my past. And I've still been working there. I still work there now. I do that in addition to ARC. That's my job. I do 30 hours a week. You know, so I've been able to overcome it to an extent, but I'm still on parole. I got an ankle monitor. I got groups I got to attend, places I got to be, things I can't, you know, still. Still difficult, but nobody knows.
Well, David, the road to redemption is not a straight line,
It's not.
right? And if it was easy, everybody would do it. And I don't have to tell you that not everybody does it,
They don't.
right?
No.
You said something to me that piqued my curiosity. Remind me how long you did time for these particular charges. You had all these charges brought up. How much time did you stay? Did you do all the time in Lancaster?
No, I did all in Lancaster for like a couple of years. Then I moved to they moved us all to Donovan because it was a lot of murders going on in Lancaster at the time. They had to shut the yard down and kind of just restart us some stuff. But when I got to Donovan is when everything really started to take place for me, and a full transformation and me being involved in certain organizations and programs started happening.
How much time did you serve total?
I was served 18 years total.
You served 18 years, 2 in Lancaster, 16 in Donovan.
No, I served like, let me see, about 2 or 3 Lancaster, about 7 in Donovan. So 2 or 3 in Lancaster, about 7 in Donovan, and then about the last 8, 9 in Tehachapi.
Where?
Tehachapi.
So you said that your charges made things more difficult for you in prison. What was it about your charges, and what difficulties did you experience in prison due to your charges?
Well, sometimes when people had found out about my allegations and charges and stuff, sometimes there were threats towards me. Correctional officers sending people at me. I experienced that. I experienced a correctional officer put a hit out on me, and this was even in my last year there at Tehachapi. You know, I was a hit put on me, and I remember one guy on the yard walked up to me and said, "Aren't you such and such and so and so?" And he tried to assault me. You know, I got away from that situation. Another guy came into the dorm and tried to assault me, and a guy that I actually was mentoring. This guy was a Crip, homosexual, bisexual, and I remember, you know, he telling me like, "Hey man, I'm getting in contact with my daughter again, and she came back into my life." He said, "You know, I have to be into the Bible and stuff. Could you teach me some, you know?" So me and this guy started having Bible. I started having Bible sessions with this guy, and you know, but he still was in that lifestyle a little bit in the prison. He still kind of was out there a little bit. And the correctional officers came to him to proposition him to try to pay him with some drugs to assault me. And he came and told me about it. You know, if I was to go to my stuff, I can go directly right now to my board packet I had, pull out some affidavits that I drafted up while in prison. And these affidavits, I drafted them up by hand, you know, made several copies of them by hand, you know, and sent them out in different letters, disguised them and sent them to loved ones just in case something happened to me, you know, to say, you know, what was going on inside Tehachapi, you know. So that was just some of the stuff that was going on. That was some of the stuff that was going on, you know, and I was able to overcome that, you know, because even like I was working in a medical clinic, and technically individuals that had my particular charges, you don't put to work in the medical clinic, right? Because it's called a sensitive job. You know, you're around the women and things like that nature. And it's just amazing because an individual can have a murder charge, you can work anywhere, do anything, but other charges, like you never know what somebody been through. You don't know what such person's situation is. But anyway, correctional officers, it was a correctional officer that actually allowed me to work there because my friend recommended me and the correctional officer knew me. But other correctional officers that found that I was in there, they did all they could to try to get me out of there. But it's amazing because the nurses that worked there, you know, I got my stuff, man. They wrote me all kind of letters for the board. And they knew everything about me. I used to talk with them and share my story with them. And they supported me. And they say, hey, you know, anything happened to you, we got your back. We know what's going on. You make sure you reach out to us. You need us to call somebody or whatever. We got you on that. So as much as the negativity I experienced and trials and tribulations, God's grace was much more sufficient. You know.
So let me ask you this. What made you turn to God when you were in prison and you realized, you know, you said, I don't have anything to celebrate right now. Look at my life. I want to turn my life around. Where does that God base come from for you?
My great grandma and my grandma, but mainly my great grandma, because she the one that I was in the house with more so earlier on, and I can remember, you know, them to make sure everybody had a Bible with their name on it. You know, I remember getting baptized. It's like right now I can visualize and see myself going up to the baptismal pool at Pilgrims Baptist Church on 46 and McKinley. I can pretty much picture that in the early 80s and remember Sunday school, vacation Bible school. Every Sunday going to church with my great grandma, you know, afterwards having dinner. That's the only day she didn't cook was on Sunday. We always went to Church's Chicken or Sizzler. And she was just really, really adamant about, you know, teaching us about God, you know, that Jesus loves you, you know, and I believe it. I believe that earlier on. And that became a part of who I was. Even like I said, at the point of the first molestation, I felt like, hey, do I need more Jesus in my life? So I got baptized at another church. So I got baptized at 2 different churches by the time I was 12 years old. At another church was St. Paul Baptist Church on 50-something in Broadway. And this is what the other guy I told you about that had tried to do that stuff. And he was a couple years older than me, you know. But it was after that, when he tried to do that, that's when I said, hey, man, I stopped believing in God. I'm like, man, how could you love me when this stuff is happening? But at the point of 2005, when I was in that cell, I said, hold on. Because I'm familiar with my Bible. One thing I knew was my Bible. And then I began to understand life is about trials and tribulations. You know, it don't promise us that we're not going to go through something. He promised to be there with us through it. And if I looked at it, I said, hold on, I'm still here. I'm still alive. Even today, okay, I turned 45 last Friday. Most of my friends started dying when we were 13, 14, and 15. Most of them didn't make it to 16 or 17. So some of them, I got gray hairs, right? I'm living a life. I got my own place. I'm a couple of jobs. I'm living well. I'm able to take care of me and even some of my loved ones. So back then, I just thought, I said, God, you are with me. You've been with me. I'm the one left you. So if I can serve you today, if I can make good on what my great grandma done for me, then let me do that. Let me do that and not worry about why I'm here, but let me serve you while I'm here. Let me be the best version of myself that my grandma raised me to be, great grandma raised me to be, and you created me to be. You know, so it just comes back to my grandma, great grandma, and grandma. It's that realizing how much they really love me. Because up until this day, they're the only ones that never forsake me, never ran out on me. You know, both of them to their dying day, they were right there with me. You know, even my great grandma, to the point to her, like she had 2 strokes. She still was trying to write me. Still sending me scriptures and, you know, trust God. Even when I wrote a letter and telling him, hey, I got all this time for this crime I'm gonna commit. I'm not gonna do this time. I told my grandma and great grandma that I was gonna kill myself. This is what I told them. I straight told them that. You know, and I got letters right here that I put on my grandma's letters in one photo album. I put 2 photo albums together, as a matter of fact. And one of the letters, she said, you know, life is worth it. She said, you know, God got a plan for you. Believe in that plan. Don't give up. This is only temporary. You're not going to do that time. That's what my grandma told me. And I began to believe in what she told me. And I began to believe in that. And things started to change for me. Things started to change. Because it was no longer about myself, but about being of service. As I began to share this very same story I'm telling you with others inside. And initially, at first it wasn't received well. Some people, shunned it, but I'll tell you one thing, this story has benefited more people than it has hurt me, because it was other individuals I walk in the yard that had similar stories. Hey, brother, thank you for sharing that, man. Would you be my sponsor? Would you be my CGA sponsor? Can nobody relate to me like you? That took courage, and God telling me about some stuff he did, old man, about some stuff he did in 63 in the woods with some, it's just things that I was able to begin to understand that my life was going to be a life of service. That my story, yes, my own, and yes, sometimes it can be painful, but that's okay, because as long as it helps somebody else, that's what it's about. If I can touch somebody else with what I'm sharing, that's the main goal.
What do you want to do for the next couple of years? What is it that what is it, some goals that you may have, or how do you want to spend your life for the next couple of years?
Well, right now I'm seeking to get a bachelor's degree, a social work minor in maybe business management. Ultimately, I kind of want to get into a little bit of motivational speaking. I think that, I have a voice and I have some things that I can share with people that can be beneficial, because sometimes you got people out here that are dealing with some depression and things like that, when really they can overcome that, and I think that my story speaks to that, because yeah, sometimes it's still difficult, but life is difficult, right? Life is difficult, but when you can overcome that, things are possible. Anything is possible. So I just want to be able to really because at our ARC, I love what I do because I'm a life coach for individuals coming from prison. So ultimately, every day I get to change somebody's lives when they come in, and I have job connections, I have resources, I have the recipe, for how you can rebuild your life, because I've done it myself, and being able to help them with that. That's really very rewarding when somebody say, hey, man, you changed my life. They come in there, I talk to them for 10 minutes and already know that things are going to change. So over the next couple of years, I definitely want to see if I can get into some motivational speaking. And that's kind of why I kind of took this on. I said, let me get a little bit more comfortable with sharing, the specifics about, what happened, because I haven't shared it in so long, with, especially on a platform like this, not having that fear to just open up and say, hey, world, here I am. Some gonna love it and some not gonna like it, but.
What I appreciate is, and I want you to give me some of your thoughts regarding what I'm about to say, is you've been very open and transparent about the crimes that you did commit. And yet you spent time behind bars, in some cases for things that you did not commit. How do you square those two things? Because I try and put myself in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
And I look at my own life and say, well, sometimes I wonder if X, Y, and Z happened to me because I feel like God has a system of checks and balances, right? I may not have gotten in trouble for this thing, but it was going to catch up to me at some point. I was going to have to pay my penance in some type of way. How do you feel about the fact that you went to prison for some things that you didn't do, but didn't get caught for some things that you did do?
I feel ultimately that, God is in control of all things, man. I sit before you when I shouldn't be, right? I shouldn't be. I should perhaps have a life sentence, but I have done things that I've gotten away with, a lot of stuff, and going in there for things that if I didn't do, I look at it and say I deserved every bit of what happened with me. Because, now earlier on, the 1992 thing, that, it's a little bit more difficult, but I just kind of look at it, everything. If I can sum it up, I say God was preserving my life. Because even then, like every time I went to jail or prison, somebody close to me had got killed or something like that. Somebody I might have been with, So I like to think in terms of God preserved my life. I'm 45, I'm still here. And even the last time, ultimately, I believe God saved me from myself. Because yes, I did. I opt to get out of the game, which is a hard thing to do. But I was still emotionally damaged. There were things that was going on inside of me that would have killed me or somebody else. Now, I was like I told you, I was abusive to the women in my life. Who's to say that abuse wouldn't have led to me killing one of them? I don't know that. But if I look at it, look who I was, and think of in terms of how when I was in prison and some of the people I came across and some of the crimes that they committed, and I said, wow, that could have been me had I not, going to prison this last time and have to face myself. Because when I was in this last time, I had to look at myself in the mirror. It was easy for me to write on a wall and put, okay, if God be for me, who can be against me? But then for God to tell me, look in the mirror, you against yourself. You're your own worst enemy. Get out your own way. Don't look in terms of saying that people that's trying to destroy your life, you destroy your own life. Do you put yourself
what, David? You know what, David? You know what? If you were a stock, I would invest some money in that stock. Because you just said something to me that very few people have ever said to me in my life, and I've met a lot of people. You looked in the mirror and you had a conversation with yourself, and you were open, honest, and transparent with yourself. And you looked at all the ugly, little nasty things that you've done and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a different person. I did that. I may not have done the things that you did, but I did some other things, David, that, being a male, you stealing, you doing this. I stole. I just didn't get caught. I could have went to jail. I could have went to prison for robbery, for breaking in somebody's car and stealing something. You know what I'm saying? I did those things. And around the time you were going through what you were going through in 1996, I had that conversation with myself and looked at myself in the mirror and said, I want to change. And I turned to God and really started reading my Bible like I never had in my life and have never stopped. But I also know that from that time in 1996 to it's now 2022, that path to change is like this. Wasn't like from A to B, straight line.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
When you decide you want to change, that's the first step in a long journey.
Exactly.
The change doesn't happen overnight. But what change does happen overnight is I'm determined to be better than what I am. I'm going to stop doing all these things. And it's going to be a gradual stopping of all these things. Some things you can stop right away. Some things are going to take a while for you to stop doing. And I'm not going to ask you what those things are. I just know that process is a process. And it may wind up taking you the rest of your life. But for you to be able to look yourself in the mirror right now and say, I know unequivocally, I'm not that person I was 2 years ago, 2 months ago, 2 days ago. That's progress, man. And the fact that you want to be a motivational speaker, I think you'd make a great one. You know what, in my mind, the most important aspect of being a great motivational speaker is being authentic, being honest and real. The tears you shed today, they're real. And you will connect with people because of your authenticity. You need to know that if you don't know it already. So I wanted to say that with you, say that to you. Tell me this, if there's one thing that you could change about the criminal justice system based on your experience, what would it be? What would you change? If you could change it overnight, what would you change?
Man, I think that the one thing I would change is that everybody has fair representation. I think everybody, because, those of us minority, we are, low income, right? We don't come from well-off families. So sometimes, most of the time we go in, we don't have representation, right? We have a public defender, And I'll tell you like this, my public defender, when he first seen me, this guy told me, he said, man, you're like Kobe. Situation happened with Kobe, right? He said, you like Kobe. He said, just take this 20 years. I said, man, Kobe, I don't got Kobe money. Kobe not gonna call you to defend him, right? I was signed for this 20 years if you do the 20 years, but I didn't commit this crime. So I would ask for just fair legal representation. I think that if everybody had that legal representation, you knew that unequivocally that they would fight hard for you. Because even with myself, I had different witnesses and things of that nature that were not called for me, because the public defender said, oh, well, I'm the public defender. I'll do what I want to, I'm the one that's gonna do what I want to do. I'm trying to get my public defender changed in the court. They wouldn't let me do that, so I would say everybody should be entitled to have fair and legal representation.
Did it ever cross your mind sometimes that you feel like maybe the public defender is actually working in some way, shape, or form with the prosecution?
Yeah, because I did all I could to get rid of this guy and they wouldn't let him go. I'm gonna tell you something, funny story real quick, right? Funny story, this is just off the cuff, just crazy funny story. I actually came out, seen the public defender and stripped out naked, right? There's a guy, right, to try to see if this dude was I was playing crazy and stuff, right? And I'm trying to see if I can get this dude to quit. He would not quit, right? I wouldn't go in the courtroom and tell a judge, I want a margin hearing, to challenge having this public defender and get me somebody that's gonna represent me right. Because the way this case should go and can go, he's not going that route. And he definitely, for me in my eyes, was working with the public defender.
You mean the prosecution?
Prosecution. Because even after my trial, my judge called me to the side. And he said, look, I should see you back down here in a few years. That's what the judge told me. The judge literally told me, I should see you back down here in a few years. I hate that this happened to you. This is what the judge told me. Why would a judge tell me something like that? Right? And that's just, and I look back though, I just look back now being a man of faith and just saying, you know what? God was always looking out for me, because even a judge, like I said, he tried to give me the less sentence as possible. He didn't try to sentence me to everything I could have got. He didn't give me everything I could have got, because he ran everything concurrent, with the exception of once the DA said, no, you got to give him enhancements. But now he ran everything concurrent. Everything he could do to minimize a sentence, he did. Everything he could do, he did. And I thank him.
Your public defender basically was just relegating you to jail. You're going to jail. You need to plead this out and get this amount of time. Pretty
much. That's how that was.
And when you talk about enhancements, you said that at the time there had to be enhancements attached to your charges.
Yeah, what it was is the judge didn't have no discretion on that. So they had to add the enhancements that allegations that were made. So like if somebody just said you had a gun, although you didn't have a gun, that's an allegation and it's an enhancement. And I think it was 3, 7, and 10, right? 3 being low, 7 being mid, 10 being high term. So the judge said, okay, I will give you 1. Because it actually was 10 allegations. So there was 10 enhancements. That's what made the initial sentence that I could have received life plus a couple 100 years because of the enhancements, right?
Life plus how much?
A couple 100 years. Because you figure it's 10 gun allegations, right? 10 gun allegations, life, 10 times 10, right? And then everything else. That's what made it to where the maximum sentence could have been that much.
So an enhancement can merely be an allegation.
Exactly.
That they don't even have to prove.
No. There had to be substantiated. All you have to say is, I have a gun, right? I robbed you, I had a gun. Until now I had a robbery with the enhancement. And I could have robbed you and just robbed you.
Right, no gun found, no nothing.
None of that kind of stuff. But that's just how the system is. And that's another thing that could be changed. But mainly I would go with just representation, because at the end of the day, representation is what it all comes down to, right? Because if you don't have somebody that's gonna go in there and fight for you, then you don't stand a chance. It don't matter who you are, but a minority representation we don't have, and you got a lot of individuals sitting inside that didn't know crime, but because of representation that was not adequate, they were sentenced, ultimately life sentences. And some of them did plead out because they felt like they didn't have a chance. And this other person is on the other side of that glass is saying, hey, this is what's best for you. This is what I think you should do. Well, yeah, you think I should do that because it's easier for you to plead me out and I have to do no work and I have to do no investigation.
So let me ask you this. A public defender is assigned to you, right? Are you in a position to look at that public defender's record?
You can have somebody do that. Yes, you can do that. You can do
because I don't want you assigning me to somebody who I look at his record or her record and all they doing is getting plea deals. Nobody is getting represented in a manner that finds them to be innocent. I mean, if I'm innocent, I want my attorney to demonstrate my innocence. I'm just wondering if people who were in your position have the chance to find out, like, do I have a choice? You assign me to this person. Well, I see nothing but plea deals here. I don't see anybody being vindicated for anything here.
Well, they have ways of looking that up, but then, like I said, you have margin hearings where you go in and you're able to ask to have this public defender removed, and then you're supposed to be able to present your reasons, and you got to be able to substantiate your reasons. And it shouldn't even be like that. It should be like, hey, I want him removed. There's a conflict of interest. Right, we're not seeing eye to eye. You know, I have ideals about this is my case, my life. I'm headed to prison if this doesn't go right. So I should be able to choose who I want to represent me. Bottom line. If I go through 3 or 4 or 5 of them, it should be my choice. Right? It should be, you know, who I want, how I want it. Not to say you want everything your way, but you at least want somebody that's going to fight for you, especially when you're fighting for your life. When you sit there fighting for, you know, the right to be in society or be in prison for the rest of your life, you need to have who you want to have for yourself. And if I don't have money to get that person, y'all send me somebody. Don't send me somebody that's going to be working right alongside y'all. And that's pretty much what happens. Now they're working in concert together. Since we want to bring up that word right there.
It sounds like it to me.
You know, and yeah, that's what happens. You know, so that's one thing that definitely needs to change is fair and legal representation all across the board, no matter how much money you got. And whether you got Johnny Cochran or whoever you got, you should be able to have somebody that's going to say, hey, you know, I got your back. I believe what you tell me, right? Because that's what the attorney that you pay for do. They believe whatever you tell them because they get their money anyway. But how about somebody going in there that say, you know what, hey, I believe in you. I'm a public defender, but you are the public. I'm defending my public. Right? Like with me, I'm a life coach for individuals coming out of prison. These individuals, you're my peers. You might be on my caseload, but you're still my friend. You're my peer. You know, you're not beneath me. I have your back. I'm gonna make sure that you get the best that you got coming out here. You know, that's how I'm presenting myself to my members as they come on for ARC and be a part of my caseload. Not that I'm superior to them because I'm a life coach and I've made it. No, I'm your peer, and what I've done, you can do too. Let me help you do that. And with the public defender, it's not like that.
Let me ask you, you've been in several different prisons. Is there anything that you noticed that all of them had in common? What's the one thing that you can think of that all those prisons had in common? If you think back.
In terms of what? Like what? Give me
anything that comes to mind. I don't want to lead you in any direction.
I'm trying to think. Pretty much all the prisons is pretty much the standard, you know, as far as like you told when to eat, right? You know, and you told when to sleep. You know, these are the things that come to mind with me, because even with our executive director of ARC, with Sam Lewis, he always speaks about how, you know, we wake up and we got a choice to do what we want to do. Right? Like I'm here, I'm in my own apartment. I can wake up, eat what I want to eat. It's not a certain set time. I got my own bathroom. Ain't nobody is waiting in the bathroom line. You know, it's just certain things I'm certain way I'm able to live my life that I couldn't do it in prison, right? Everything's on time schedule. Like I said, child time, so when you go to sleep, when you wake up, all these things is common amongst all prisons. But when you hit society, you have the freedom to do what you want to do. You're not confined to those things any longer.
So part of the reason I asked that is because I went to juvenile hall down in downtown LA.
Okay.
Pre-COVID. It was around this time, actually. It was 2019. It was around Christmas time. And I had never been inside a juvenile facility to the extent that I was in. I was in a day room. There's 30 kids in the day room. 29 of those kids was black and brown. There was one white kid there.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
That's what jumped out to me. That's what stood out to me. It stood out to me because I said, what a hell of a way for this white kid to finally get some exposure to black and brown people. He had to go to prison, not knowing anything about his life, right? But I'm saying, I noticed that because I've been the only black person in an all white environment, but I was outside in public and didn't really have a choice at times in those environments. I wonder what was going through that kid's mind, not knowing him at all. But that jumped out to me because living in this country, you often see the exact opposite. You see a person of color surrounded by a group of white people, whether it's work, whether you're at a restaurant, whether you're at the bank. And I'm saying this white kid is in a carbon copy environment, but in prison. He had to go to prison to be around nothing but black and brown people. That's what jumped out at me.
I guess I didn't look at it like that because I've been in so many prisons and, I had multiple friends, whether they're white, Mexican, black, Mexican, brown, black. That didn't sound out to me because I just see us in there all as the same. I just see us all as just, we're convicted felons, right? We're all trying to fight for the same, freedom, so that's something that really never, really dawned on me, but that could be said. That definitely could be said. And it's, as minorities, we do come up against it a little bit different than others.
I say that it's interesting because, you're not the first, the name of this podcast is called Cops and Convicts. By the way, I want to remind our viewers to hit that subscription bell and hit that thumbs up button to enhance the channel. There's a woman that I interviewed. Gosh, man. It's been a long year, David. At the beginning of this year, she's white, and she's been in prison, and she's on a path that you're just now starting to get on. She's close to getting her PhD after getting out of prison.
Right.
One of the reasons she wants to get her PhD is because she wants to help the black and brown women that she met in prison that were in such great abundance in prison compared to her with her white skin. And when she found out what some of them had done compared to what some of the other white women had done,
excuse me, yeah,
and she saw how much more severe the black and brown women's sentences were, that has always stuck with her, that she wanted to do something about that. So I find it fascinating that you not being white and not being female, that's not how you looked at things. And the female prison experience in a lot of ways is very different from the male prison experience. There's a lot more bonding there from what she told me, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share if there was anything that you noticed about all the different places that you have been.
No, I get it, and I can get where she's coming from. Like you said, female prisons, because they're not that many. So with us, we move around. We got different places that we go to. They got 30-some prisons for men. So, you know,
Were you in a maximum, were all those maximum security?
initially starting off from Lancaster to Donovan, and then ultimately went to level 3, and I paroled. I went to Tehachapi level 2. You know, and level 2, that was the lowest level I can go to because of the conviction, but it was low security, low level. And when I started getting situations where I could say they were trying to set me up and they were trying to put a hit on me, then they put me back on the level 3 yard when COVID hit. You know, they got to get me off the yard. There was a lot going on. So I did parole from a level 3.
So when you were starting to have problems with, for example, correctional officers putting a hit on you,
Yeah.
They didn't put you to a lower security facility. They put you to a higher security.
Yes, but it worked out for my favor. It worked out in my favor because in the lower security, I was in a dorm living, which is more open, can be a little bit more dangerous, right? But then they put me back in a cell living. You know, it can be dangerous too because you're in there with one person. It's a closed quarters, but I was fortunate to be able to get in a cell and by myself and stay like that for the months that I would be on that other yard. Because I only stayed on the other yard. I only stayed over there for like about 8 months before I would go to the parole board and go home. It all worked out in my favor. I got in that cell by myself. You know, was just completing my degree for associate degree. Had one statistics class to go, so I completed that, and had board to go a few months later. So a lot of time to myself, and it all worked out. It all worked out. It all worked out. You know, I think God. Well, not I think. I know God moved me. They thinking they were doing something by getting me out of the position I was in at work, because I always had the best jobs. Always did very well. They said, okay, we're gonna disrupt this program, right? We can't run him out of the job. We can't run him. We can't make him do this. So we gonna put him on this list. Because they were moving people anyway because of the COVID. They were trying to make space. So they were doing that. That was already going on. It's just that because of my job, I shouldn't have been on that list. Because I was at the time I was a critical worker. I was the lead man, the lead custodian in the medical clinic. But because of everything that was going on, they wanted to make sure to get me off the yard. But they actually did me a favor. You know, it all worked out on my behalf. Because here I am, here, right sitting before you.
Well, listen, brother, I'm you know, the day I met you, I knew that there was something about you that I wanted to get to know better. I didn't know what your story was. All I knew is that you presented yourself well, you spoke very well, and that you had been incarcerated. I wanted to know what your story is. And I appreciate you taking the time to share your story, but also I'm hoping that our viewers, after listening to you and hearing you and seeing the shirt that you're wearing, you know, everybody can change. But in order to change and really do what you want to do, which is serve other people, you need a second chance to do that outside of those walls. Yes. I mean, you can help people from inside the walls, but and in a lot of ways, I'm sure you have. Yes. I mean, you've described to me how you have. But in order to do that out here in society and really leave an impression that allow other people to say, you know, people deserve a second chance, they need to be exposed to you. And I think that that's one of the biggest problems in our society is a lack of exposure. And I hope that hundreds of thousands of people get a chance to see this interview and the clips that we generate from it, so that they can connect with you on a human level, because that's what this is all about. It's for people to see people who have been incarcerated and people who have been in law enforcement, to see them as human, because there are segments of our society that look at both groups and don't see them as human. So I want to give you all the credit in the world for turning your life around and coming a game changer and spending time with members of law enforcement where maybe that's not something you would have been open to years ago. I know a lot of people who aren't open to doing that right now, and they've never been incarcerated, don't want to spend any time with police officers, don't want to spend any time with people who've been incarcerated. So I want to give you an opportunity to share any final thoughts that you might have before we sign off here.
Initially, even today, I was a bit nervous because I never really shared like this on this platform. I've been in prison, shared in prison groups and things of that nature. But knowing this will be seen by many people, yeah, I was a little bit nervous. But at the same time, ARC is about opening up minds, changing minds, to where you do hear our stories and you see that, yeah, we have made some bad choices, but we're not bad people. A lot of times individuals come from trauma-inflicted lives, and things happen. But, people can change, right? People can change. And, my brothers and my sisters, that's all we want, is to be able to be seen and viewed as any other human being, because we're trying to do our best to make it. I've been out now going on 2 years. I've been incarcerated every year of my life since I was 14, up to the point of 43. But today I feel a part of society. And that's because of the choices I made. I made a choice to turn my life around and give it over to the care of God. And my main focus is just to serve others. And with me sharing today, I'm hoping somebody else, have a similar story, may be able to come out of, obscurity or whatever, and maybe find some peace and know that they can make it too. And anybody else that may be going through something and you think that, maybe life is overwhelming you, I want you to know that things can change. Things can change. You just gotta have hope. Don't give up. Believe in yourself. I can't tell you that, 4 or 5 years ago, I would see myself on this platform, speaking the way I'm speaking to Sean here. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. I feel very fortunate. I'm very thankful. So hopefully, I've learned something today about myself, and I learned that, I'm ready to take it to the next level, right? I want to be able to share freely with others so they will be able to maybe gain some strength from my story, and learn more about individuals in the incarcerated community. So with that being said, I just thank you, Sean, once again for inviting me. And I look forward maybe to more events with Game Changers.
Hey, no problem. Is there anything else you want to share with our viewers? Do you have a website? Do you have a social media presence that you want to share? I want to give you the opportunity to point some people in the direction of either learn more about you or ARC or anything else that you want to share.
Oh yeah, well, I do a little bit, well, my email, if anybody want my email, is dbarclay@antirecidivism.org. My Instagram, David Barclay, delivered and set free 2021. That's where I'm at. And a lot of time I'm just always.
That's your whole handle, David Barclay.
Matter of fact, I'll be a little bit confused with this. I'm still this social media stuff is still something for me,
Yeah,
right?
let's look it up. Let's look it up together.
But I know
I'm gonna look up David Barclay, and I'm gonna find you right now. David Barclay. Yeah, it is. David, okay, it's called, your handle is Delivered and Set Free 2021.
yes, okay,
I'm following you right now.
okay.
So that's your handle, Delivered and Set Free 2021.
Then on my Facebook, it's just regular, it's just my name, just my name. And a lot of times,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Life is about choices. Choose to be great every day to the glory of God. Right? That sounds like you.
Yeah, that's me, man. That's me right there, man. Choose to be great every day, right? That's what you got to be. That's what I choose to be. Great, no matter what the past is. You don't know my story unless I tell you. You can't walk alongside me. You cannot communicate with me and know where I've been at. I like to say, from the hood to the boardroom, I can speak with anybody. My conversation is not limited to just some slang. That's not how I was raised in my household. And that's what I like about even my executive director. I told him a few weeks ago that I'm proud of him and admire him, because you don't know his story unless he tell you. It's some people, you can talk to them and know, okay, this person's from the hood, they grew up over here. But even with him, you cannot tell what he grew up at because of the conversation, because of the sophistication of the conversation, the language of the conversation. It's different.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I'm glad we had an opportunity to do this, man.
Yeah, like I said, I know what to expect. I'm like, okay, what's going, but I'm glad too. And I thank you for this opportunity because, like I said, it just further solidifies what I want to do with myself. And I just want to be able to help change lives. That's it. If you can tell somebody, hey, believe in you, just believe in you, right? Like you just said something to me that touched me. You know, that if I was a stock, you'd buy into me. So that was a huge compliment. And I take that and I go with that. And told my coworker earlier, I said, you know, I believe this is just the next step to the next chapter of my life, the next level, and where God is leading me to. So I appreciate you.
No doubt, brother. Thank you for joining us. And I'll be in touch with you, man. It was great speaking with you today.
Question, could you send me a copy of this or?
I got you, man.
Oh, I appreciate you.
I got you. Hang on.
Appreciate you, man.